people, thank you for still being there with us on our discussion segment. And at this point in the spotlight is still the ongoing End Bad Governance protest. And today we're looking at the changing pattern of these protests with Emeka Odom, a communication development expert and public affairs analyst. Good morning, Emeka.
Good morning. Thanks for having me once again.
Okay, you see the caption for today's discussion, the changing pattern of the End Bad Governance protest. The protest that commenced on August 1 was to agitate for hunger, bad governance, hike in electricity tariff, and hunger. I didn't take that lastly for just for the heck of it, but we know that that is chief of the matter. Before we get into the pattern, the latest pattern, can you bring us up to speed, how the protest is ongoing? I know it doesn't happen this part of the country, but it's still raging elsewhere.
Yes, thank you so much. Some of us, as people who play in the media space, we have been following events and monitoring as well the development of the End Bad Governance protests across the Nigerian states. Now, the point is, like you said, the protest began on Thursday last week. After much, hula baloo about it, as people have already noticed, most of the states in the southeast didn't quite take part in the protest as we see in other places. Not just in the southeast. You see, there are 36 states in the federation, and so we can say the protest is very well recorded in about 15 of them, if they're up to that. But many other states, we didn't hear anything from those places. Even in the southwest, places like Ondo, places like Ekiti, we didn't quite hear much from some of those places. States like Cross River, states like Bayelsa, I'm not quite sure that we heard anything from. So it wasn't actually only the southeast. However, some of the people have also said that the southeast protested in their own way, by sitting at home, which in a way I believe that sitting at home is also a form of protest. I mean, we see people who during the June 12th issue, if you recall, the sitting at home was a legitimate tool of protest that was utilized at that time to also make a point. So in other words, protest is not only when you come out in the streets, carry placards and carry leaves, there are so many other ways that you could also protest. However, the protest was, we saw a lot of people on the streets in the northern states of Katsina, Kano, Kaduna, Bauchi, Borno, and many of those other states in the north. And also in Lagos, perhaps at Ibadan and Osun for the very first day, Of course, that happened the first day and up to the second day and into the weekend. And there were a whole lot of agitations for Mr. President to address the nation and particularly speak to the issues that the protesters were putting on the table as demands. Eventually, Mr. President spoke on Sunday, and again also, a lot of people didn't quite feel satisfied in his broadcast, his address to the nation, because there has been diverse opinions, majorly on, a great length of those opinions were on the fact that Mr. President should have taken, note of a couple of things in his address which he didn't. Whether that was deliberate or, an error, we are yet to, know. And so, yesterday we also saw in one or two other states the protests, also continued. Particularly in Abuja, we saw the protests beginning from Thursday down to across the weekend. Places like in Plateau State, just Plateau State, we saw even protesters in the media. We saw them holding service, on protection, on protest grounds and things like that. So it simply means that we can conclude that the protest is still ongoing, even though it may not have the same
tempo
and
started
yes, with which it started with, you know. But basically, one thing we need to understand is that the way the country is now, and for me, I believe that our leaders know this very clearly and they take advantage of it. In this part of the world, protests here don't really take the dimension that it does in some other places. Elsewhere, protests could happen for days, even up to months. I mean, a couple of years back, we saw the protests that happened in Thailand. I think that was was it immediately after Shinawatra or during the government of Thaksin Shinawatra? We saw how protesters occupied Suvarnabhumi International Airport, which is the main airport of that country in Bangkok, for almost 1 month or more. You know, they took over every available space. Flights could not go in, flights could not take off from that airport. Here, I don't think that could happen. We also saw what happened during the Arab Spring, where people were on the streets every day. In fact, with each passing day, there were more and more people on the streets. Now, I don't think that kind of protest can take place here. And most recently, in fact, ongoing as a matter of fact, we saw what's happening in Bangladesh. You know, the protests in Bangladesh began since July, which of course, you know, has culminated into the Prime Minister resigning. So it has culminated into the resignation of the current Prime Minister, you know, Hasina. Here, I don't think we do that kind of protest. Even during the June 12th saga that we saw, to me, that was one of the most prolonged period of agitation in Nigerian history within the purview that I know, you know, which the Nigeria that I am conscious of. I cannot talk about the independence because what we know about the independence period, the colonial period, is what history is able to capture. You know, there are many things that happen that history is not able to capture, and so. But speaking from the point of the annulment of June 12th, that was the longest we could say there was an agitation. But even at that, the protest did not happen back to back for all those number of years. It was an intermittent thing, you know. Maybe after a while, in the next 2-3 days, the protest will come and fizzle away again. Maybe the next week or the next 2 weeks, another one will come. So, and for me, our leaders take that for granted. They know this, and they use it as a weapon. Because the Nigerian people, there's too much hunger in the land. You see, most of these other countries that we'll talk about, like what happened during the Arab Spring or some of these, a lot of people, young men and women, who sustain protests, because protest is not sustained by people of my age.
Okay.
I cannot.
Younger persons.
Yes, there's no way you expect me now to on matters of this nature to take to the streets. I did that when I was in the university. I did that during the period of June 12th in Lagos. You know, so now these young people whose energy and enthusiasm sustain agitations and protests of this nature. In most of these other countries, a lot of them are on social welfare scheme. So no matter what happens, at the end of the month, they are giving money to sustain themselves, at least even if it's for feeding. Here, there's nothing like that. An average man here, if he doesn't, a lot of people live a subsistent life here. Their economy is subsistent based. Their income is subsistent based. And so any day they fail to go out to hunt for bread, the entire family stays hungry that day. Only very few people here are on paid employment. And even the paid employment, a good fraction of them are with the private sector. And so if you don't go to work day 1, day 2, day 3, the man who employed you will tell you, say, well, as you can see that you didn't work, so where do you expect me to get the money to pay you? You understand? So that is why here, when something like this happens, it happens like a flash in a pan, or like early morning rain. Once it happens, day 1
is off.
Maybe day 2. In fact, it will struggle into day 3 and it fizzles out because people have to go back to go and look for what to eat. The bulk of the people are probably people who, you know, they are either conductors, bus drivers, organizers, or these other people who get what they eat based on a daily struggle. So if the economy, the business climate is one that maybe the protest disrupted business for day one, disrupted business for day two, you see them going hungry. So they will be under pressure. They will even you find out that even they themselves that are taking part in the protest will be praying for the protest to stop so that they can go back and get what to eat. So that is the nature of our society, and that is why most of our leaders, they take that, they know this and they use that as a weapon. So when issues like this come, all they need to do is to, just like the Senate president said, they cross their leg with a cup of champagne. They know that in the next 72 hours the whole thing will fizzle away.
Okay, you said that we will not have the kind. It doesn't look like Nigeria will experience the kind of chaos that happened with the Arab crisis, and you mentioned quite a number of others where the protest escalated, and you're looking at it like it won't get to that point. But something is happening for the first time in recent times. I don't know if it has happened sometime in history. Being that in some parts of the country, in the north precisely, we saw people flying Russian flags. In fact, I didn't know what to make out of it. The first time I saw it, it was on the social media platform. I didn't believe it was happening. I don't know how you would want to analyze the issue of people out of the blues flying another nation's flag. And before now, they didn't have separatist agitation, for instance, and all of a sudden they're expecting external leadership. Someone said the West out, and what part now are they should come in to have influence over Nigeria. Some persons feel that it's looking like there's an external hand in all of this.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I come to that question, what I actually said was that you see, our people don't have that history of this very long agitation like it happens elsewhere. Now, that is not to say that it can't happen. Anything can happen. I mean, you can only vow for today or yesterday. You can't vow for tomorrow because tomorrow you do not know. So I only said that our people don't have, looking at the trajectory, we don't have that history. At least we've not seen it happen, and so that is to that extent. Now, and remember also, let's get it straight. See, riot is not the same thing with protest.
Okay.
They are two different things entirely, and I do not think that the law supports rioting. However, the constitution of the land supports peaceful protest. Is a legitimate means of expression by the citizens, and as long as it is peaceful, it does not disrupt the peace of others. It does not disrupt it does not infringe on the right of others. Peaceful protest is allowed, and I'm happy that the government of the day has also recognized that. Now let me come to the question that you asked. Yes, taking a look at this protest, one could see very novel dimensions to it, something that has probably not happened in recent past or before, as a matter of fact. Particularly in the north, we saw a lot of people hoisting the national colors of some other nations. Russia, we're able to recognize that that's the national flag of the Russian Federation. On the immediate level, where we may not know immediately the reason behind that, but I believe that the security agencies, this is a job for them to unravel reasons for such unusual occurrence. Because if I recall very vividly, what Nigerians were asking for was government, an end to bad governance represented by unfavorable government policies. Very clearly, this was what Nigerians were asking for, which to the best of my knowledge, was the reason why a lot of people said, look, there's nothing wrong, that this protest is good. Everywhere in the world, protest is a way of saying, look, we don't want this. If, as I left my house this morning, maybe I live in a rented apartment, the landlord of the house, who is the owner of the house, I pay my rent. I am not a bad tenant by every standard. And maybe as I'm going to work in the morning, the man has locked the gate and said nobody will leave. I'll protest. I will reach out to me and say, sir, why do you have to do this? I'll say, no, you can't keep me here. You understand? That is a form of protest. But I will do that within the ambit of the law. So it's legitimate. And so, but when we now saw in the north, people carrying the colors of another country, that is something that requires a very deep interpretation, because it is not a normal thing. We saw the NSAS protest. In fact, I was going through the social media now this morning, and somebody was actually asking, why is the government angry that people are carrying Russian colors? After all, during the SARS protest, people carried Nigerian colors.
And they were shot at.
Well, they were shot at. You know, so but again, also, these are also things for government to also be very, very mindful of, because you see, that's what we tell people. Government is about doing things the right way. Now, somebody is asking that, as much as we don't condone hoisting or flying of the flag of another country in a sovereign nation like Nigeria, but people ask, during the NSAS protest, people were flying Nigerian flag. They ended up being shot at. So if now somebody decides now to go and carry another flag to stay alive, to maybe to prevent being shot, will you blame him? These are things that, you see, that's why even our government, our security agencies, sometimes when actions are carried, they should be able to look left and right and say, what are the implications of it? You may do something now and get away with it, but we have
there are consequences.
There are consequences. You open a chapter for another thing else that you do not expect. Now, as much as we do not know the reason why these people are flying the colors of the Russian Federation, we can only sit back to look at peace in things here and there and make conjectures. Number one, you do know that one of the things pundits have identified for the current negative policies, in quotes, negative policies of the current administration, is that these policies are being propelled by the World Bank and IMF. Now, the World Bank and IMF have been identified as, tools of the West to control nations or to manipulate the economy of nations. I mean, is rightly or wrongly, this is a strongly held view.
We're forever borrowing from them.
Yes.
Seriously.
This is a strongly held view that the West is using IMF and World Bank to hold the economies of, developing nations hostage by proposing to them, policies that are anti-people. And so, one could sit back to say, well, those who are hoisting this flag is a way to say, away with the Western policies, Western economic policies, knowing too well that Russia is a symbol today that is almost at, opposite directions with the West. So if you want to present something that represents anti-West, you could fly Russia to say, wants to show Russia, Russia is a nation today that is anti-West, obviously. So that could be a way. That could be the angle they are coming from. Number two, now you also saw that not long ago, some of our neighboring nations within the West African region, there were interventions in some of these countries, and Nigeria, along with the rest of ECOWAS, said no, and in fact threatened to dislodge some of those governments there. And what did some of those governments do? They stood their ground and rather identify, instead of identifying with the West, they identified with Russia. And some of these states we are talking about now are states that share a lot of affinity with some of these our neighbors, in terms of culture, in terms of religion, in terms of, you know, lifestyle. So it could be a way that they are saying, please, we want to go this way. We want to identify with, instead of these Western values and Western ideas, economic policies, and we want to identify with these people. Thirdly, you see, it's very common that, particularly in the third world, when we do things and we think our government is not being fair to us, we cry out to the outside world to please come and help us. A lot of times we have this, in fact, many Nigerian organizations, NGOs, and many other interest groups, they do something here, they send petitions across the world, they copy US, they copy UK, they copy the Commonwealth, they copy the United Nations, they copy the AU. These are very common things that people do here, to say, to draw attention, to say this is what come to our aid. Now it could also be a way that these protesters, because this protest is engineered by policies that are Western prone, they could also be appealing to, you know, outside nations to say, come and save us from these bad economic policies, but this time around not to the West, to Russia, seeing probably the kind of helping hand that Russia has just given to, you know, people,
These countries
like Niger. So you see, these are all conjectures that are coming from different perspectives, but like I said, it's left for the security agencies to dig deeper. But see, my worry is that a lot of times, what very silent, subtle, but intentional and consistent and diligent investigation can do, a lot of times we replace them with harassment, bragado, and the brigandage. And when you bring those ones, you may not really get to the root of the matter. So what for me, I will expect and advise the security agencies to do is, you see, we all know that the military in Nigeria is might. They have the might. Sometimes when our security agencies come to display might, I just laugh. Shoyinka used to say something. He said, a tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. You don't go about roaring everywhere to say, I'm the tiger. People already know you are the tiger. So sometimes I see a lot of overkill in some certain things. On this issue now, my advice to the military is, look, be very subtle, be very silent, in a crack-like manner, but very diligent and consistent. Dig deep and know why this has to be. It's not by harassment, intimidation, and brigandage. You want to show, you know. Sometimes you want to go and arrest a little man. You're going there with a contingent.
And the teller is not the problem. Someone asked him to make clothes.
Yes.
Or make
flags. These are some of the times.
You have a point. At this point, let me announce the phone number so that our listener can actually join before you go on with your questions. 0907 275 9950, 0907 275 9950, or 0706 815 8029, 0706 815 8029. If we're going on at the protest, Bidolu subtly as an agitation for bad governance, is gradually taking another shape, taking another dimension. And the issue of hoisting and flying Russian flags but were just one out of many. So now the phone lines are open. You can join the conversation as we discuss the changing pattern of the end bad governance protest with Emeka Odom, a public affairs analyst. Choma, your question.
All right. Earlier when you were talking, you said something about the fact that other nations, they protest for a much longer period of time than we do here, so they're able to get attention. So, do you think that some of the reasons why our leaders are not looking into the matters, the pressing needs of the people, is because they know that in no time they'll all go home and rest? Is that it?
Yeah, it's very, very possible. It's very, very possible, you see, because when you know that, look, this thing will just fizzle away. This won't last. It will just fizzle away. I'm assuming you are dressing up to go somewhere, and you know it's threatening to rain. And in fact, rain has just started. If you believe that, look, this rain will just fizzle. I mean, to just drizzle, and just before you know it, in the next 30 minutes, the rain everywhere will get dried. You continue to dress and you continue to make your plans to go out. But assuming you know and believe, because you have seen it happen several times, that this rain has just started now, instead of it to stop, it's going to continue to pour today till 5 p.m. The moment it starts raining like this, you know that it's possible that this place I'm going is no more. So you see, that is the idea. Our leaders are aware of this. They know it. Why would a few days ago it was reported that the Senate president, whether he made that statement, whether that was what he intended to say or not, but the truth is that it was reported that he said people can go ahead and continue to
we will be eating where we are.
Why would a political leader at that stature make that kind of statement?
No, but
if he knew?
the Senate president
Never
is
confirmed.
always prone to such careless flippancy.
But that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. So for a man who occupies such an exalted position, you know, for him to, why is it so? Because then, I mean, he has been a governor. I'm sure he must have seen several protests. So he knows very clearly that, look, forget, just sit down, don't worry yourself. When they get tired, you understand that kind of a thing. So that's the way it is. It's just like your own baby you have in your house. When your child is crying, there's sometimes when your child is crying, and even your visitor, your friend will say, go and attend to this baby now. Say, don't mind, she's always a drama queen. She's always a drama queen. Oh, he's always this. After some time, he will keep quiet. You understand? Because you know that will eventually happen. So that is why. But assuming we are a people that when the protest doesn't have to be violent, it cannot be dry. Even a peaceful, occupy a place peacefully, singing, you know, government will give you attention. But they know that we can't sustain that. You know, they know very well that these people are hungry. Just leave them now. In the next 72 hours, everybody go out. Yes. Yes. And that is why if they even look into the crowd, identify 1, 2, 3, 4 people, provide them with food, and you break the protest because people are hungry. But by the way, let me also say that you see, now that this protest is at this level, the violence that happened in the north, very regrettably, that shouldn't be the case. We condemn it in totality because nobody wants violence. But let us say this, that is the reason why everything should have been done to avoid getting to this point. Both those who are governing us and those who are being governed, those of us that are being governed, everybody should work together to ensure that we don't come to this point. For me, this protest, notice was given. In fact, I was among the people that said, look, these young people are not even willing to protest, because if they are willing to protest, they will be giving you 1 month notice. And that 1 month was an ample opportunity for the government
to effect the
to have looked at the 10 demands and said, look, out of these 10 demands, which one can we do? Everybody is reasonably convinced that there are at least 3-4 things there that government can just take care of. Then engage the people, engage the young people, draw them closer to say, look, well, we have seen your demands. Some of these things people are asking for, they are not as easy as ABC as you think. Look, there are many things you can't see when you are far away. Come closer, let's show you some of these things people are asking. I'm sure that if the president had done that, perhaps we may not have even gone into this protest. But what did the government do? Instead of them to utilize that whole period to engage the people, and people were asking them, engage these young people, address some of these issues. They didn't. Rather, they spent so much time pointing accusing fingers at those who were organizing the protest or not, calling on P2B, calling IPOB, calling ES. I mean, these are very. I felt so bad. Now the protest is here. If you fail to make hay while the sun is shining, you live with the consequences. Now the protest is here. Again, also people were calling the president to please come and address the issues. He came on Sunday, and of course we have read several knocks that the address got from different quarters, including some of the closest friends of this administration. People like Soyinka gave the address. giving up. Many people that even a lot of supporters of the current administration felt disappointed. Say, look, what is this? You're reading out the same thing you'll be telling us since the day you went into paper. You did this, you did. Look, we have seen some of these things you did, they are not good enough. And Nigerians are saying that these are the things that are even causing the hardship. So the president could not, speak to those issues directly and do something. So that is the issue. For me, communication is key, and a lot of times as a communications person myself, I feel a bit bad when people fail to utilize the vehicle of communication to settle conflicts.
All right, now people are out there, not exactly in the southeast. We seem to be protesting in a different way, which is something we'll get to talk about. What do you think about it? There is a situation of protesting but not long enough, and people who are not even protesting at all. This happened and we decided, we have lost enough. We don't want to be part of this. We can make our voices to be heard without going out there and having things destroyed. But then let's talk about those who are outside already. When is it time for people to stand down? Like you've been out there, you've been talking, and the president has come out to say something, but it doesn't affect. He didn't address any of the things that you were talking about. But then he did say something, and he's done. Now, people can be out there for a long period of time, and then when they are there for more than they need to be, they may have the military or soldiers or even the police use force to get them to leave. So when is the right time for a person to say, you know what, we're here, we've done this, it's time to go back? And then where does this whole thing link to the government? Because like the people are out there and they're just telling you, oh, sorry, those who lost their lives, we are really sorry that you died, but the subsidy must not be removed. It's like
Be restored.
Yeah, be restored. Yes. When it's time for them to just stand down?
You see, the organizers of the protest already announced that they are protesting for 10 days from 1st to 10th. And so let's hope and believe that 10th, as they announced, I don't think they have given any contrary information to that. And so that's effectively takes care of that. However, I've also seen places where those who probably they said 10, they are hoping that before that 10th, the government may have acceded to one or two of their demands. But unfortunately, in this case, government has not. So I've also seen places where people come out to say, well, since the government still hasn't answered us, now we are moving ad infinitum. Just like we have strike, how people do in strike. I've also seen in places where people don't even give a time. They keep protesting until as long as it happens. But again, also, like I said,
Now that you have gone to this point ahead of the questioning, Kenya is our neighbor. We belong to the same continent. We saw a protest escalating to a riot, to the point that it appeared the government is being run out of the country. We saw the National Assembly the Parliament being attacked. I saw a video of parliamentarians escaping through the underground. The maze was stolen. We also saw the president cut down, suspended or sacked some of his escort, and then eventually all of them. Yet they were insistent on him leaving. We saw the fracas, the protest escalate to that point. And it didn't start as a riot, it started as a protest, and it escalated. Nigeria is not Kenya, anyone can say. But then hunger does not have a country or a nation. If you're hungry, that's just the description, and it has only one solution. I need you to look at Kenya's issue. It appears to have died down, sort of, because Nigeria and Kenya. We know about Bangladesh and all, but that's how it is with Kenya now?
Yes, you see, you know the issue of Kenya is similar to some of the things that are happening here as well. Kenya, they had a lot of reforms in their country. The president carried out a lot of reforms, and one of the chief reforms was, he wanted to secure a loan, from the IMF, World Bank, and now as a means to repay that loan, it was going to impose it was going to raise the tax level and impose a lot of tax on the people, because the truth is that it takes us back to the question we talked initially. A lot of these African countries, they go seeking for loan from the West, particularly Paris Club, the World Bank, the IMF, and now these loans are given. They are not grants; they are given because they have to be recouped. This World Bank, these are business organizations that doing business, quote, with a human face, so to say. Now, when these loans are given, they know that these loans cannot exist in isolation. So they propose economic policies to you and reforms you carry out in your country to be able to repay these loans, because you have to repay them. And so now, because our leaders need the loan, a lot of times they agree to carry out these reforms, and these reforms come as a form of economic burden to the people. Many of them end up becoming, taxes are raised, different taxes are raised, different subsidies are removed, and people are made to face the harsh economic realities by paying more for goods and services, so that government can rake in more money to be able to repay the loan as negotiated. So that was what happened in Kenya, and the Kenya said no, we don't want this loan. And the president tried as much as possible to convince them that, look, if you don't take this loan, it's going to impact negatively on us in the coming years. The people said no, we don't want it. And you see, again also, that goes to underscore the power of the people. And a lot of times I've heard arguments. People say no, the leader knows. See, the leader is, and
the government in its wisdom.
Yes. See, the truth is that the leader or the leaders, in a couple of years, they will return to the society and they become part of the people. So you cannot know more than the people. That's the truth. Sometimes our leaders here, when you hear them talk, they talk to us as if they are the only ones that went to the university. They are the only ones that studied. They are the only ones that are, that understand these economic principles and policies. They talk as if the rest of us don't know what we are doing. I want just to follow. But the truth is that a whole lot of citizens have a better understanding of these things and they know. And many other times also is purely personal interest they are pursuing. It's purely personal interest. But they won't come to tell you that they are pursuing personal interest. And so eventually that was Kenya's lot. Now Kenya went into let's also emphasize this point that one of the reasons why we must all make sure that we don't see, government must have a listening ear. If you look at all of these protests and all this is happening up and down, it doesn't just happen overnight. You tell the government, the people tell the government feels that they know it all, because they have the tools of governance. They control the machinery of state. They control the instruments of coercion, the security forces. They always believe that, look, they can use them to push whatever policies that they want. After all, if Bush comes to shove, they use security forces to quell and to suppress the will of the people. It doesn't work that way all the time. It doesn't. Because even the security forces you're talking about, many of them, they're also they don't have any special market where they buy their things. Their families are mixed up in the society like other families. Many of them pay house rent. Many of them pay transport fare to work. They buy from the same market that we all buy things from. They're also suffering. They understand these things. So that is why, just like Kenya, just like Bangladesh, when the people rise up to speak, the government should always listen. It's not all the time that the government wants to push their way just because you are in government. You want to push your way. Now, when people say in quotes, I no agree, now they tell nigga. The people say I no agree, the government says I no agree. At the end of the day, where are we heading to? Towards protest. And you only know how it starts. You only know how it starts.
You can't predict the end.
If the prime minister, look at what happened in Bangladesh. The protest started in July. And what was the demand? The government had a policy of employment quota for the veterans. Now, over time, politicians have abused this process. They now use that quota to now put in their own cronies and things. Typical of what happens in Nigeria here. Very typical of the Nigerian situation. And the people, the young people, the students, represented by the students, they rose up to say, please abolish this quota, we don't want it again. Now, if the Prime Minister had listened, today he is no more. In fact, the protesters had to, they be protesting. Eventually, the protest was going by the day, and they found their way into the presidential villa, looting, destroying things before the Prime Minister ran away to India. But these things could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. If this policy, you say, oh, this policy is for the good of the people, and the people say, look, we don't want this thing, change it. Why don't you bring them to a round table discussion? Try and see if you can convince them. And if at the end of the day they insist on saying no, what is wrong with change? Provide an alternative.
Okay, now.
So that is why for me, when people insist, oh, removal of subsidy, if you don't remove subsidy, Nigeria will collapse. Who said so? Who said so? When President Muhammad Buhari came to power in 2015, as a journalist, I know very well several times that same policy was presented to him. He refused to remove fuel subsidy, and the man never did till he left. As a matter of fact, he was even very smart. In the last year, in 2023, they planned subsidy till end of June. He knew he was leaving in May. Why didn't he remove it before he left? He knew it was a vexed issue. Muhammad Buhari knew that it was a vexed issue. He didn't want to run into a situation where we are today. In 2015, they came to Muhammad Buhari again to devalue the naira. The man said, no, if you devalue the naira, the ordinary man on the street will bear the brunt. And these are things that are happening today, for goodness sake. If President Muhammad Buhari is probably one man who we know him as a military officer, as a disciplined military officer. He's not the man that's given to to talk. If we are to come out today to talk, he will tell you. He will tell you. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came right there on the inauguration ground. After taking oath of office, the greetings you give to Nigerians is that subsidy is gone. From that day, things turned upside down.
Up until this moment, to the point of
automatically hunger setting.
Shameful protest, hunger strike, hunger protest.
And even on you are still dealing with that issue. The next thing, you devalue the naira, and your aides will come and say that you have the political way, that you need a decisiveness for, and hunger is ravaging Nigerians. Maybe they don't understand the level of hunger, how hungry people are.
All right, we have just about 5 minutes or thereabouts to still dwell on this. It's 9 minutes to 11 o'clock, and at which point we will be rounding off the spotlight this morning. The changing pattern of the end-band governance protest is our focus, and we're still here with Emeka Odom. The numbers to call if you care to join the conversation are 0907 275 9950. Or 0706 815 8029. We have tried to look at latest protests elsewhere around us and Far East in Bangladesh and the outcome. And we're also trying to look at the evolving pattern even here. For the first time in a long while, people who originally were not agitating for a separate country or even a foreign interference started hosting another country's flag right here on our own soil. And I don't know. Some persons are also of the opinion that this protest is not timeless. Is the timing is wrong. I don't know what your own sentiment on this is.
When they say timing is wrong, perhaps they need to be more, they need to
Clear.
Yeah, what
yes.
would rather do at this
What,
point?
what would people do at this point? Would they have been during any of the, Nigeria is a country where people attach so much sentiment to religion.
And
Would they have come at the time that the Muslims were celebrating any of their things, or would they have come at the time that Christians are celebrating any of their festivals? So the issue of course, people have different views to issues, but for me, the major thing that people are hungry now. So that's
why some people feel that way is because of the measures, because from the president's speech he passed across like someone who
the president should be very glad that this protest is coming now,
early enough,
3 years ahead of an election. What about if this protest had come 6 months before the election? What will happen? They will tell you it's opposition. In fact, they will probably arrest all the opposition and say they are the ones that this. They will even say that it's because of the. See, I think in this part of the world we like to pass the buck and we like to give excuses. Look, it doesn't matter when the protest is coming. Please address the issues. Address the issues. Introduce policies or whatever thing that the government is going to do. And for me also, I also think that the opposition should please come up with alternatives, because we must also say this about opposition. Opposition has also not been quite fair in this matter, because elsewhere the opposition will come up with alternatives. Say, look, yes, we see Mr. P2B making comments on a lot of government policies and actions, but let's see more than that. Let's proffer solutions. For instance, the issue now of fuel subsidy, the removal of fuel subsidy. A lot of people have identified fuel subsidy as the pivot of all of this whole thing and the devaluation of Naira. Now the government is saying, look, we had to do this because that was the only way out. Now if you tell the government, so look, you shouldn't have done this, what other alternative are you putting on the table? If you criticize government for the opposition parties, you see, these are things, that is also something we should know. The opposition parties should have been able to say, look, government shouldn't have done this at this point in time, but this is what they should have done. Government shouldn't have done this at this point in time, this is what they should have done.
Even if the government is not less.
Even if we sometimes they say not because the government, not for the government, but for the people, so that we know that yes, they have an alternative, and that is what choices is all about. So let's know that, look, this is of alternative that we have forgone. Maybe in the next election we may decide to go this way. So the opposition should do more. People like PDP, who probably have been there before, they should do far more than they are doing now. They should do, even at the state levels. Not even at the state levels, nothing is happening. I don't think those who contested are who contested governorship positions in the various states that lost. How are they holding the current leadership in the states accountable? If the governor does this, we are not talking of destructive criticism. We are talking of pure constructive criticism. We say, look, this is what the governor did. What we look forward to is a democracy. Democracy, the beauty of democracy is just alternative. That is what democracy is all about, that we have other alternatives. Now, let's assume in a state like let's say Enugu State, for instance, elections has held, more than probably 5, 6, 7 governors contested, parties contested. Now, one party has won, is there now. We must recognize that the election is gone. Now we have a government in place. But those who wanted to be governor, they should be active. If the governor goes this way, and you think that governor shouldn't have gone this way, please tell the people, look, this way that the governor went, there's a way that is better than this way. Convince the people. That is the way. You don't just come out, because what we see in Nigeria is everybody goes to sleep.
Which way is better?
That's what I'm saying now. That is what democracy is all about. That's what we call shadow government. Shadow government is where, as the government is, we have minister this, minister, the opposition party will also have their own. But those other ministers are not they are not in government, they are not acting. So if, for instance, the government comes up with a policy, say this is the way to go, the opposition party will look at that policy. Is this the best for the people? If they feel it is not the best, they will tell you, no, this policy is bad, this policy, they criticize it and tell you this is what the government should have done. That way too, you have to, educate the people. You have to raise the political consciousness of the people. That is what true democracy is all about, not destructive criticism. And I guess it's because they don't have any alternative. That is why all of them are quiet. Yes. And where the government in place has done well, you applaud him. You say, yes, the government has done so. That is the right thing to do. That is you congratulate them. That is how clean politics should be played. But we don't see that happen in Nigeria.
Okay, as we begin to wind down, there's the issue of accusations and counter accusations. We saw, the security agencies calling out on those who are hoisting Russian flag, and terming it treason. We also have some officials accusing the journalist of blowing the protest out of protection and giving it a face. Okay, and one critic has already said that who should address the nation or the protest situation? Who should be talking? Is it the Minister for Information? Is it security agencies? Everyone is talking, saying what they feel.
You see, first and foremost, I disagree with the security agencies by saying that journalists the media shouldn't project the protest. That is very wrong. For me, why wouldn't, right now in Nigeria here, we know what is happening in other places. So if we can sit down here to know what is happening in other places, why won't people know what is happening in Nigeria? And apart from that, when journalists cover protests of this nature, any wrongdoing there is journalists bring a lot of times. It is a report of journalists, it's reports in the media that security agencies can use, that can prompt them to go and act. So that's also an advantage. So it's saying that if the media doesn't report, protest issues, what should they report? There are no protest that happens in America today. CNN will not carry it, BBC will not carry it, Al Jazeera, all the media all over the world, Canal France International, they will carry it. So why wouldn't the media in Nigeria? Are we going to be doing half job? Every day we sit down here, we listen to analysis of different people in America, even issues that you will even think that, look, why are Americans projecting this kind of issue to the whole world? They project it and people should know. So why will our own be different? Now, beyond this, you asked a very important question on matters of this nature. You see, that is part of our own dysfunction here. Protest of this nature is purely a civilian action. It's a civil action. It's a civil action. By right, this is the period where the government and their communication experts should be at work. This is the period where government and whoever is a communication expert at different levels. This morning, I saw the Director General of the National Rotation Agency on television. Beyond that, where are the essays on media? Where are the essays on public affairs? Where are they? They are the ones that should be talking now, because it's assumed that these are professionals who understand how to pass a message across to the public, even in a very tense situation. The government has taken a particular decision, which there's a way you communicate that message, it will end up infuriating the masses. But when a professional, coins that message in a manner that is very balancing enough, the public may receive that message without anybody being angry. But another man will come out to communicate the same message, everywhere will go up in flames. So that's what we are talking about. This kind of period, for me, it is not the military that should be addressing us. In fact, when issues of this, we see in other parts of the world, when issues of this nature happens, the military, they stay aside and watch until, for me, it's only when probably things now begin to get to a point, that there's a total breakdown of law and order. Yes, maybe in the north it's understandable. Police can go in. Police should go in there, and because looters and rioters, that is different. That's not what we are talking. I don't think that is the essence of this protest.
Yes.
These are criminals.
Yes.
But when people are peaceful protests like this, it is not a time for the security forces of DSS or enemy to come and start harassing and intimidating people.
It's time for town hall meetings.
It's time to engage the people. Let those who are communication experts within the government, let them come and address the people, let them talk to the people. That is the way it's supposed to be.
All right, Emeka, our time is fast spent on this segment. I don't know if in 1 minute you can. There was something we had as a theme of our conversation before now, and that's workable interventions, direct interventions, and I can say sustainable interventions. You said from the beginning that the president is yet to address the issues. How best can these issues be addressed?
See, this
beyond rhetorics.
This protest, those who are, we saw it all over in the media, both in the conventional media and in the social media. They came up with, is it 10 demands? Now those 10 demands, let the government look at those 10 demands. There are a few of them that could be addressed directly, even in the NSAS protest. While the protest was ongoing, we even saw the Inspector of Police come to announce the dissolution or disbandment of the SARS itself. That was a direct response to the demands of the protesters. We saw that time. We also saw government announce that look, they were going to set up pro panels in every state of the federation. That was also a direct response. But in this case, we have not seen anything. So government should, irrespective of anything else, now, okay, fine, the president has spoken, we may argue that he doesn't have to speak again, but nothing says he can't speak again. He's our president, he's our citizen. There's no limit to the number of times that he can speak to us. After all, during the COVID-19, we saw President Muhammadu Buhari address Nigerians so many times. During the Naira design, we saw President Muhammadu Buhari address Nigerians several times. So there's no limit. In America, when Obama was there, in fact, even till today, the American president addresses almost every week. So there's no hard and fast rule about it. For me, the president is the man that we all voted. He has a type federation as his constituency. Let them look at those things and see what they can do. The chief, issue here, the major issue here is hunger. All of these other interventions that they are saying they've done this, they should first of all find out how effective are these things. Are they getting to the people, to the target?
Yes.
These are the issues that they need to find out. Are they getting to the target?
4.2 trillion naira in palliatives.
So,
and we know many Nigerians that this did not get across.
The price of things are very, very expensive. There's no reason why a plate of garri should cost more than 3,000, even up to 3,000 naira here. Why? So these are the kind of things that are fueling all of this whole issue. So let government address it. Even if the protest is broken today, either through whatever intervention, either through by force.
It's looking like it.
People walk away grudgingly. It is still not good.
Okay, thank you very much for lending voice to our focus of conversation today. The evolving pattern of the protests, which many have judged most dramatic. It started with some traditional political leaders rallying marches against the protests. We saw people even starting the protests on the social media even before the physical gathering. We saw the looting in the north, the violence, the chaos it began, it eventually became. And we also saw people hoisting another country's flag, all in the name of what has been tagged hashtag end bad governance protest in Nigeria. But I don't know if it's going to go beyond, if there's going to be fresh development. I mean, today is 6th, we still have about 4 days away to the end of the protest, and so this conversation is still ongoing. We thank you, dear listener, for being with us, and Emeko Dome for being with us on the program this morning. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We are rising from this spotlight and inviting you to join us tomorrow at 6 a.m. on the breakfast show. Good morning, Coal City on ESBS Sunrise FM 96.1. My name is Ngozika Mba. Good morning.
My name is Chioma Agolanga. Keep listening to Sunrise FM 96.1.